Hello and welcome to my presentation about data tables. We'll be talking a little bit about how the HTML goes to actually setting up the table, as well as how you can use CSS to style the table. So to start with, I've got a basic presentation. Data tables. So let's start with a simple HTML layout. And hide this so you can actually see the whole presentation. So if we look over here, we see our code for our basic HTML table. Looking at this just straight, if you've never done this before, it can be a little confusing. So we've broken it down. So just like we start with the table, we've got our code for table here. Well, the next thing we need to do is make a table row. So we start our table row here, it ends here, our closing tag. And then now this first row is going to be our headers. So inside of our row, we're going to have these nested, just like we see over here, table header tags, which I filled in with birth month, favorite color, and age. So once we've closed that table row, we'll move on to the next table row. Now this is going to be our first row of data. So instead of using a table header, we use table data tags, which is this TD here. So our first row under birth month will be April, under favorite color will be pink, and then age 7. Our next row, which we again enclose in a table row tag with table data inside that, will be October, and then blue and 16. And this is where our table ends. So we've got our opening and our closing tags for each of our items in here, with our data obviously encased in the tags. So just a little recap, table row, every row you want, including your headers, must start in a table row. Table header, again, this is for us birth month, favorite color, and age. And then our table data, everything we want to appear in the box. So we've got an example of this. So this is what happens if you just put that code straight into a document. Yeah, it's set up, but you don't have the styling you want at all. So let's do some styling. For our styling options, we can do it in HTML. However, it's a little bit smarter to put it into CSS. If you put it into HTML, all you're going to do is clog your code, reduce your readability, and honestly just make it harder on yourself and if anybody else is working on this project with you. So we're going to put our code into CSS and link our CSS page to our HTML document to make sure that we're using our code. And this allows you to do all your all your styling in one place instead of jumping around and doing small little spots at a time. So here is an example of what we would put into CSS. We're telling it our table head, and our table data all needs to have this one px solid black border. Now remember, this is in a separate page, so you'll have your HTML and then your CSS document will be linked in. So when we do that, this is what we get. And while it looks better, it kind of looks weird with all just these tiny boxes inside larger boxes. So I think we can do a little bit better. So we can use what's called a border collapse. If we use the phrase border collapse, what it does is it brings all those borders together, which, let me go back. You see that there's the multiple sets of borders here. But if we use a border collapse, it will actually pull those together and just make individual boxes stacked on top of each other instead of individual boxes inside more boxes. So border collapse can help make your presentation look a little neater. So what else can you do? You can obviously change the color of the background, the font, the size, your text align, your paddings, your margins. There's anything you can do to any other elements, you can do to a table, which we'll actually look at that in a minute. What we're going to talk about now is if we need to have one cell that's larger or take up more than one cell's worth of width. So we're going to be talking about our col span, which can make our columns span more than one unit, and then our row span, which will make our rows span more than one unit. So for this col span, I went ahead and did my header as taking up 2 spaces. So in this case, I've got name and parents as my headers. And then for the information I filled in, it's my name as well as my parents' names. So that's a pretty simple example, is just you set your col span to 2. It takes up 2 boxes worth of data. Row span, very similar idea, except now you're setting it up a little bit different because your data, in this case, is going to be on your right instead of underneath. So you're going to have a table head tag and then a table data tag in this same table row. But again, you're setting your, in this case, row span to 2. So, however, if you'll notice, we've got 3 table rows worth of data. In this second one, we set up our table head is going to be a row span of 2. So technically in this third one, our table head is here. It's taking up 2 cells worth of data, but you do not put this again. Instead, you'll just go ahead and move on to the next piece of data in your set, which in this case would be Amy. So that's the end of this slideshow, and now we'll take an actual look at the code. So I've got our examples from before pulled up in here. If you've noticed, I've given them an ID just so we can do a little bit more editing with it. And then I've got my CSS page. And notice I've got that linked up at the top into my page. So now if we pull this up in Chrome, this is what it looks like, just normal. Now in my presentation, when I first explained it, you'll notice that there was a bunch of different colors we could do and such. So we're going to go through that now. And it's actually going to be, go back to our code. Okay, so we've got this titled our table 1, and this is our table row 1, table row 2, and table row 3. So now if we go into our CSS, I've got these commented out, but for this first one, we're going to uncomment it. We'll go up to edit and block uncomment. Save this so our changes are kept. Refresh the page, and now you can see that our table headers have become green. We'll go ahead and uncomment these as well. Save. And as we refresh, we've now got it so that our rows are matching our favorite colors. However, if you notice this bottom row, you can't really read it well because of how dark the blue is. So let's go ahead and change that. If we go back into our code, we've already got it saying, hey, we're going to work with table row 3 here. So let's do font, color, and then let's do white. Save this. Oh, that didn't work. That's because we should only use font. That's my bad. No, we should not use just font. Well, this is slightly embarrassing. Should be. Color, but that's not. working. Anyway, we'll move on and I will figure out what I am doing wrong momentarily. We'll go ahead and uncomment these out so we can see these other tables in action as well. Save this. And of course now our other tables will show up in our tester page. If we were to want to change something about this, we can obviously give these IDs just as we have with the other one. So for instance, we could let's give this row ID equals, let's do TR4. Just go ahead and continue in our pattern here. Now if we were to go into here, we can do TR number TR4. This tells us that we're dealing with table row with the ID number of table row 4. Let's do this one. Background color of yellow. As you can see here in this code, you can do the hex number, or you can just, there's a few certain colors that are built straight into browsers, so it'll hold those automatically. And voila, let's turn that red, let's turn that yellow. So we've talked a little bit about styling. We've talked a little bit about how to set up these tables in general. So here we've got our our first table, our second table, and our third. You can edit the width, you can edit the height, anything like that if you're working with our CSS. So I hope you've gotten the basics of how to work with tables and how to work with data tables in HTML and CSS. And thank you guys for watching.